Today, let us look back at the true, factual origins of the Revolution and the Declaration of Independence, a document born from the grievances within America's colonies, yet profoundly shadowed by the issue of slavery. One of the most profound grievances, especially in the southern colonies, was not merely a demand for freedom from Britain, but a bitter reaction to Britain's abolition of colonial slave statutes. In 1766, with the American Colonies Act of 1766, also known as the Declaratory Act, the British Parliament declared all colonial laws in the American colonies conflicting with British legislative authority, including laws establishing slavery, were null and void for all purposes whatsoever. Then, in 1772, England's highest court reaffirmed Parliament's authority in the landmark Somerset decision, stating that slavery had no basis in English law, and slavery in the kingdom could only be a lawful institution if authorized by a positive law, a legislative power held solely by Parliament. These judicial rulings struck at the heart of colonial slaveholding interests, rendering their so-called colonial slave laws void years before the first shots of the Revolution were fired. When the Continental Congress declared independence in July 1776, it bound the United States to the principles of English law and its jurisprudence, including the Somerset decision. Logically, under these principles, America's rule of law should have guaranteed fundamental due process of law to the 500,000 black men, women, and children living in this new nation. But Congress, with a wary eye on the precarious unity of a fledgling nation, chose to look the other way. Fearful of a country splintering under the weight of the slavery question, Congress denied fundamental due process protections for black individuals living in the United States that were enshrined under the English rule of law and the international treaty. This failure wasn't merely a momentary lapse. It was symptomatic of a government with little power to enforce its domestic or international obligations. Congress could not guarantee protection, had no power over state sovereignty, couldn't control currency or trade, and struggled to assert consistent authority. Aware of these dangerous limitations, a group of political leaders called for a general convention, the historic gathering that ultimately gave us the U.S. Constitution. Yet, in drafting the Constitution in 1787, our framers made painful, calculated concessions to the institution of slavery. They crafted a document that embedded protections for slavery, embracing compromises they hoped would preserve the Union: the Three-Fifths Compromise, the Slave Trade Clause, and the Fugitive Slave Act. These concessions were not made lightly, but with a conscious and tragic recognition that they were cementing an institution they hoped one day to see extinguished. But these choices planted seeds for future conflict. By choosing unity over liberty for all, the framers' concessions became the fault lines leading to the Civil War. A union held together by compromise would soon find itself tested, torn, and divided over the institution that Congress and the framers had once tried to avoid. Today, as we reflect on our nation's journey, we are called to confront the legacies of these choices, understanding the truth that the birth of American freedom was inseparably bound to a painful compromise. It is our charge to learn from this history, to understand the costs of those early concessions, and to shape a future that remembers the lessons born from that struggle. Freedom is genuinely indivisible in this future, and justice is equally shared. Please share this video, visit our website at Wells Center on American Exceptionalism, and look for future videos.